So you've said that in your career you did a lot of speaking. And I know one of people's biggest fears is speaking. They say that is, sometimes people fear speaking more than they fear death itself. So how have you handled that? How have you prepared to speak? And I know that you've said that you're an introvert too, and I don't know if that makes it even harder, but what are some things that you've learned about, speaking and making it easy and fun as opposed to, a horrifying experience?
Yeah, I mean, one thing I've learned is that everybody gets nervous, and so I've been on this panel with a director from MIT Age Lab who he's such a fabulous presenter and a media darling. He's quoted in the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, all the time. And we were waiting to go up on stage, and he says to me, I always get so nervous. I have my stomach, and saying how he had a stomach ache. And I thought, wow, even this guy, you would never know. And he says, no, I get nervous every single time.
So don't think you're weird if you're nervous. That's actually a good thing. In fact, I actually heard somebody say that if you're a little bit nervous, you'll do better than if you're not nervous at all, because I've actually seen people who aren't nervous and then they don't have the right energy when they're speaking. Yeah. But if you just have a little bit of adrenaline, it gets you focused.
I'm trying to channel that. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to be able to channel it. You don't want to be too nervous.
True. Yeah.
So how have you prepared for some of these presentations you've had to give?
Yeah, well, I did kind of learn the hard way in a way. What I started originally, how I would prepare, being so nervous about speaking and wanting to be super prepared and not mess up and not say the wrong thing and not look stupid, I would want to write everything down, like the idea of writing a speech. Don't people write a speech? So I have to write word for word what I'm going to say, and then I would go and memorize it word for word. And that's a problem. First of all, it's a lot of work. It's a ton of work to do that. It's very, laborious, and you agonize going back and forth about how to phrase things and, how to make it sound good. And writing down and speaking it is totally different.
Right, of course.
Yeah. And then second of all, it's even more stress on you, because you're thinking, I have to have this all memorized, this perfect way of saying this speech. What if I forget what I'm going to say? And so it's a lot of, it even adds more stress to you. So that turned out to be.
And then, how do the speeches come out though when you prepare that way?
I'm more stiff, and then I also feel like I have to hold my notes, because what if I forget?
Right, of course. You have to find your spot.
Yeah. And so that's always a bad thing to have, holding the notes kind of makes you look a little less confident. You need your notes. It makes you also seem a little like there's something between you and the audience. You have these papers you're holding. We're supposed to try to use our hands and be more expressive, and that's what they taught me in media training. And so you can't do that with your notes, and it's a little strange. So
of course I could flip this piece of paper around, but yeah, it's a little distracting.
Yeah.
So then that didn't work. What did you end up learning worked for you?
In my job as a spokesperson on retirement for the Hartford, they sent me to media training, and so then I would have to, I went through this long training, and they basically talked about the power of threes. So there's been a lot of research on, 3 is kind of a magic number. It's easy to remember. It's a nice round number of things, and so to definitely, have your 3 points in mind that you want to talk about, and flesh out your ideas about those points, and then have some stories that you can tell to reinforce, but you don't have to write word for word what you're going to say,
I've heard that too. In fact, I once was petrified preparing for a speech, and I had a coach, and she said, tell me what's the most important thing you want these people to get out of it, and then what are the 3, and that's exactly what she said, what are the 3 things about that they need to know. And then for each of those 3 things she would say, what are the 3 things they need, and it's really interesting because it does work. It makes it work really well.
Yeah.
So think in threes, don't write the whole speech, and I would say be more natural too, right?
Yeah, and also think of kind of visual things and interesting. So keep it interesting and more visual for the audience in what you describe.
Yeah, I run into that as a challenge. I have it all in my head and I don't put enough pictures in my presentations, but I need to learn to do that. Okay, great. Thank you.